Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for this episode is Jordan Kurtz. He's the co-host of the Colorado Sports Radio MMA Plug. He's also an MMA commentator and has his own podcast, Comments from the Peanut Gallery. I had a great time sitting down and talking with Jordan. We discussed a lot of different things that's going on in the UFC and MMA news, up-and-coming fighters, and I hope you enjoy the listen. What's up, Jordan?
What's up, Bobby? How you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
Man, thank you so much for coming in. I know you're a busy man. You got like freaking 5 shows or something, right? And a video career and all kinds of different stuff. So I'm super stoked to have you, man. I'm a huge UFC MMA fan. I try to grapple when I can. I haven't been lately. I try to get in and roll jiu-jitsu when I can. But yeah, so I'm super stoked to talk to you. And you've immersed yourself in that industry and that sport, like fully, pretty much, right? That's pretty much your full-time gig right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a hand in pretty much about every different area that you can, without actually being the guy inside the cage fighting, in that regard. So just to kind of share for those who may not be familiar with me, some of the different spaces within MMA that I've worked in. Just like you mentioned, I've done everything from the short film, producing little docuseries to highlight reel, just promotional material for a lot of the guys that you see out there every single weekend on these UFC cards, and then all the way down to the local cards. I really don't care if a guy is an amateur or toward the top. I'm going to give the time of day one way or the other, because at some point, that guy who is just starting off as an amateur, if he does everything the right way, there's going to be a day where he is now that up-and-coming guy who you're seeing on the big stage. Thinking of it in this perspective, when I started everything, Bobby, that was with some of my closest and dearest friends in the world, like Yusuf Salal. He was a 3-0 pro at that time, I believe, once we started working together 3 years ago. Now, look at where he's at now. He's had 5 fights in the last calendar year. 4 of them in the UFC. He's 3-1 in the UFC at this point. So just things have had a crazy way of building itself up. I do commentary for a few of the different promotions out this way. Colorado Combat Club. Shout out to my boy Eric Mitchell, one of the promoters out there, as well as my man Rick. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity, for allowing me to grow as well, because I can't learn or I can't grow without people giving me the opportunity. So I'm always humble and grateful for that. Thank you to Gary and Nancy with No Mercy Extreme Fighting down in Colorado Springs. I've done some commentary for them a couple of times alongside MMA icon as far as commentary goes on the local scene, Trevor O'Connor. He gave me my first opportunity to commentate 5 minutes before a show. So it was one of those things of, I walked in and they had someone drop off and no show to commentate. And he said, well, this guy has had a headset on before. He knows the sport a little bit and can talk. Let's see what he can do in a live setting. That's how my commentary career started. That was the night after.
Plus you get a front row seat, right?
Exactly, front row seat.
Yeah.
And that was the night after being cage side for LFA doing photography. So pretty much about every different role that you can have outside of being the direct competitor in there and a coach on the outside, I've had some sort of, hand in. I've been put in a great position. I feel honored. Coach Mark Montoya, life-changing influence in my life, by the way. Dude
is a stud, man. We had him in for episode 4. I got to give a shout out to Mark right now, because he's a big reason why we have the audience that we do. So.
Yeah, no, Coach is a life changer. I would not be who I am or where I am today without Coach Mark Montoya. Plain and simple. Without the Factory X family as a whole, I would not even be remotely in the position that I'm in. I came to them at one of the lower points of my life. Like so many people, once they get into a martial arts setting or actually have the courage to walk through those doors, you've had to go through some trials and tribulations to get to that point. And then once I got there, life even took a crazier turn, but the people that were there didn't take that lightly. They helped build me back from that, and I'm forever grateful.
Man, that's so
something
great.
that's
Yeah.
it's a close place in my heart that Factory X has, because I lost a close family member when I first started doing this. My brother passed away, and that was something that I could have gone one of two ways. I could have either allowed that type of adversity to consume me, or I could use that as fuel to the fire and propel me forward. And fortunately for me, I had great influences like Coach Mark, like Jordan Totoni, Austin Jones, Yusuf Salal, Brandon Royval, Ian Heinisch, these guys out there who really kind of took me under their wing when I was at my darkest moment. And I'm forever grateful to every single one of them for that.
That's so awesome, man. And I think that people can go completely on the other side of that, right? They can go into seclusion or turn to drugs or alcohol to help cope with some of that pain, and
100%.
Man, my hat goes off to you for standing up and walking through those doors too. I mean, that takes some fucking guts, dude. And I know what it's like to lose close family members. I mean, I haven't lost a brother, but I lost a cousin this year.
I'm sorry.
And it was hard, man. And he was younger than me. And nobody really saw it coming either. You never do. So it's just one of those deals. Yeah, I think people sometimes take for granted the people that they're surrounded by, and maybe they don't treat them the way that they should all the time, or take the time out to really make sure that they're okay. And I urge everybody to do that, so.
Oh, yeah. And unfortunately, that's a lesson that I've had to learn the hard way. So I always try to now, anytime that, it could be a simple situation if we just hadn't talked in a while. But if we're friends, I'll just reach out and I'll say, hey, I don't even need a reply. Don't need to say anything back. Just want to let you know I'm thinking of you, and just hope that everything is good. Yeah. Just sort of messages like that.
I try to do that as much as I can. When I have free time, it's like, just reach out to your boys, and I got them all over the country. I got them all over the world, actually, and this pandemic, that was one good thing about it, is I knew everybody was home. I knew they weren't doing shit. So I was able to reach out to a bunch of people and be like, yo, what are you up to? Are you all right? What's happening? And it was a good time for everyone to catch up, myself included. So I feel super fortunate on the friends that I do have. And the thing I love about Mark, going back to Mark Montoya, is he's just, the first time he walked through the door was the first time, well, it wasn't the first time I had met him in person. We ran into each other at an archery shop. But prior to that, we hadn't really ever sat down and talked. And he is just a down-to-earth, no bullshit, tell you how it is. OG, 100%. Yeah, so shout out to Mark Montoya for real. But yeah, man, so what have you been up to lately? I mean, you got all kinds of stuff going on, and we're going to dive into that here in a little bit, all your different shows and what your role is on a lot of those shows. But what else is going on in Jordan's world right now? I mean, we're kind of starting to see the reins be pulled back a little bit on gyms and mandates and shit like that.
It's a tough thing to manage out there because of all the regulations that are being put out on just business owners across the board. But I don't want to go off any sort of crazy political tangent or anything like that. I just personally believe that gyms are a 100% essential service.
100%.
And I look at it from the standpoint of, there's a lot of people like myself who have demons, and if you don't have that outlet to be able to go and be in general that community, because when you join a martial arts gym, you're not just joining a gym, you're really and truly you're joining a family, and that at least that's the way that it is.
It's about as close to a cult as you can get. Without being crazy,
a
right?
Murderous cult, where everybody's trained. But no, but it, like I say, in that way you're joining a family and a community, and so then within that, if you're away for a little bit, more times than not, one of your your regular training partners or your buddies that you've came into from the gym, they'll reach out and like, hey man, where you been, or how are things, that sort of situation. There's also the standpoint of, there's a lot of people who turn to fitness in general, not just martial arts, but fitness as a whole, who are reformed addicts. And I look at that as something that if you take away someone's outlet or their ability to get those endorphins, and something that's also in a healthy way, that's just not a good recipe for anybody involved. But that's
a
about
really
as far
good
as I wanna
fucking
go on
point,
that.
man. It's a really good point. And above all of that, I mean, just what all of our immune systems are compromised right now with this virus, right? One of the things that helps that is exercise and being healthy and having, not being overweight, having good cardiovascular capacity and higher blood volume, I'm sure helps, all those sort of things. So I don't see how they could deem that non-essential.
Right.
But a Walgreens is okay. You can go down and buy any over-the-counter drug you want.
No restrictions at Walmart. No any of that sort of thing. That's the biggest thing that bothers me.
Liquor
about
stores
all of
are
it.
essential.
Yeah.
Dispensaries, right? Like your drugs and alcohol, you can go get that anytime,
They
anywhere.
definitely want that tax money from the
Yeah.
weed, baby.
Yeah.
Because if you think of it this way, they just the House. I don't know if you saw the news today. The House passed the bill that decriminalized cannabis federally. It obviously
really?
still has to go through
No
the
shit.
Senate still.
News update right here, Jeremy. Let's look this shit up, man.
But you just
that
have
was
to
this
think on a
afternoon.
federal level. Once that all goes through, should it get passed on both sides or on the other side that's still remaining? Just have to think about what's the tax going to be on that.
Oh, it's already stupid.
Yeah, it's already a crazy tax.
I think
but
in
once
the
the
state
feds
of
get their hands in
California,
it, it's going to be
just
crazy.
the state of California, I think is like 35% or some shit.
Unreal. Unreal. Yeah, I anytime that I go out on the road to states where it's recreation that I can just go into a shop and go, I just think whatever it's going to cost because it's not going to typically be at the same sort of scale that Colorado has it in that regard. In terms of cost, California is definitely way more expensive.
Yeah, it's stupid out there. I mean, California in general just has got it so backwards, man. It's definitely you pay to live there, I think. I lived there for 15 years, and it's a fucking great place to live. And when, if you're single and young and you're not worried about literally throwing your money out the window or in a dumpster or whatever, then it's a beautiful spot. Good people, awesome friends that I have that live out there still. But man, it is a bloodsucker for sure when it comes to
Let me
the
ask you
taxes.
this. Do you think that LA will be the same again after everything starts to open back up once the virus is passed and all those concerns are gone? Do you think that LA will ever be the same based off of the mass exodus of a lot of the high-profile entertainment figures out there, especially the comic scene?
I don't even think it's that. I mean, we all know that Rogan's left there, right?
Right.
Coming from a podcast world, that's huge, right? How many people are going to follow him? Fucking a shitload,
Well, how many
right?
already have? That's the question that
Exactly.
you have to look at. You
Yeah.
have some of the bigger figures that were out there, like your Joey Diaz. Theo Vaughn is out to Nashville now. Brendan Schaub is still treading the waters out there in L.A.
Come back to Colorado, Brendan. We want you here, buddy.
He's polarizing. A lot of people throw a lot of shade Brendan's way, but I like listening to Brendan personally.
I do too, man.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a knuckle-dragging moron just the same, but I like listening to Brendan. And furthermore, I watched those football teams that he played on, years, like being a Colorado kid growing up through that era of when he played for CU under those good Barnett teams. I watched him, didn't know who he was back then, obviously, but now in retrospect, looking at it, watching, I remember seeing those games and you in the mix, then goes on to fighting. Obviously, I've always rooted for the Colorado guys, regardless, at whatever stage it comes to.
Yeah.
And then, even through his ventures with all of his different, from Food Truck Diaries to, I love the ideas. The dude just hustles. But I think a lot of people hate that he gets the opportunities that he does because of the Rogan connection. But for some of them,
But man, it's not all about that.
he still works. At the end of the day, how many of those other people who want to throw shade on his name are willing to go do, Food Truck Diaries, Below the Belt, King and the Sting, Fighter and the Kid, to all of his different, from Star or Encore, whichever
he
the
owns
boxing
part of
network.
Pure Spectrum.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
His
I
Pure
mean,
Spectrum deals.
Yeah.
How many people are willing to wear that many hats and work that hard? It's more times than not the people that throw shade are the people that aren't doing shit themselves.
I agree with you 100%. I'm a big fan of Brendan, and I grew up exactly in the same era that he did. I went to school up here, and he was down the hill, but, I saw him wrestle in high school and stuff like that, and it was just He's just always a good guy to be around. Like,
sounds like it.
yeah. And it shows. I mean, you can't do that many shows and be on the mic that much and be fake.
Oh,
For
no.
that many hours, like he's probably putting in at least probably 10 hours at least of recording a week. You can't fake that shit.
They always want to take out of context a line here or there and blast him in the media for it. But to be fair, and this is coming from just my experience of talking on a microphone for X amount of hours per week, you're going to say some dumb shit.
Right.
You're going to make some mistakes.
You're going to slip up.
And you're going to fuck up, especially when you're talking things in a live setting or when you don't have the ability to have someone who can pull something up right here in front of you. If you don't have that, then sometimes you're going the best off of your recall and
you're thinking out loud a lot of the time, and I think a lot of people, just because they hear it, they think that that's exactly what you think. Well, no, I'm trying to fucking work it out sometimes, and a lot of the times I'm just thinking with my mouth, which has gotten me in a lot of trouble in my life, in bars and work settings. I mean, all over the place. So now that the fact that I have a podcast is even crazier, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's just, I think people need to understand that you're literally, your brain is on your lips when you're in a podcast setting like this. And we don't do much post-production here. I mean, a little bit of audio spikes and anything like that. But other than that, like what you're listening to is what you get, that it's like you're sitting in the room, and that's how we want it to be, because
that's how I love it,
who
man.
wants, I mean, I'm going to throw the term out there, fake news. Who wants that, and there's a shitload of it out there now these days. And I'm no expert in fucking anything, dude. Ask anybody that knows me,
Yeah.
But I have some common sense, and I like to try to figure things out. So that's what we do here anyways. Well, let's talk about you, man. I mean, you have comments from the Peanut Gallery. Mm-hmm. What's I'm drawing a blank here. The MMA plug, right?
Yes, sir. The
and
MMA plug.
That's another podcast on top of.
Oh, yeah. So that's a radio show.
Oh,
shit.
Yeah.
So we're on Mile High Sports Radio for that.
I've listened to you on all these, but I don't know where I'm getting it because radio shows now are streaming. Which is awesome.
Exactly. And that's the beautiful thing. Every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time, you can tune in to me as well as Ron Kruk, the voice of the Legacy Fighting Alliance, legend in the MMA space. The man has been doing MMA media for the better of 20 years now, has talked to anybody and anybody throughout the top ranks from UFC champions all the way down through now your up-and-coming bright prospects with the LFA fighting promotion. So that's a blast. Every single Wednesday, we do that from 7 to 8. In these first few weeks alone, since we were picked up on the Mile High platform, we've had
That's right, because it's Mile High Sports Radio is actually where I heard you the first time because I saw your post, and I went and listened to that. And it was fucking awesome, man. It was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a pretty much, we've tailored the show to be a full-on, like, turnkey professional model. So the way that we break up our segments, the way that we handle our guests, and the way that we kind of break out on the show, it's essentially plug. So any networks out there listening, we're always open to whoever.
ESPN.
Exactly. Whoever is out there, that's something that I feel like Ron and I have worked hard, as well as our producers have worked hard to build a format that's something that can be sold to be picked up by some of these bigger networks, especially when we're talking running in all the different reads and the advertisers and bringing in some of those really, really high profile guests that we've had. Just as like this week, we had Uriah Faber call in. He was our first guest.
Fucking awesome, man. I actually listened to that as soon as I saw it. I'm a big Uriah fan, and watched him for many years in the cage, and that was great to just listen to what he's got going on now too, and
Definitely.
to have you talking to him is even better.
It's like a got to pinch myself moment sometimes, and it's happened on a few of these different conversations that we've had throughout the radio show. But then we talk about Anthony Lionheart Smith during that second segment, and then as it's in the third, about to go to break, Anthony texted me and said, "Hey, is it too late?" Because I had asked him earlier in the week, but just the hectic commotion that I'm sure his phone is after a win like that he had last week.
So dope, by the way, Jeremy. See if you can pull that up. That should be on Fight Pass. Freaking awesome triangle, man. That was a good W, and for a guy that works that hard at it too, and his last couple fights haven't been that great. That was awesome to see him get that W.
Oh, definitely. Well, and see that's where I'm hesitant to say the last two overall, because obviously the Glover fight didn't end well. There
was so much heat going on in that.
But if you look at the way that he started that fight, the way that the first round and a half to basically the first 2 rounds of that fight were all Anthony, and anything that
100%,
was being called from the corner was being executed. He just didn't put him away. And so I think that in trying to go for the kill and trying to hunt for the finish, this is just me. This is nothing coming from the team. This is nothing coming from just my observation. It just looked like it was paired with, when you pair that with the life adversity that had been going on leading up to that fight with the break-in that he had, there was a certain element of adrenaline dumping that happens. It's just something that anybody who has made the walk, whether it is in a full-on MMA fight, a jiu-jitsu tournament, a strike, like a kickboxing match, boxing match, whatever, an adrenaline dump is a real thing. And sometimes it could happen to the best of them, especially the way that all of those adversity factors were building up for him. That is my best explanation and my interpretation. Again, that is not reflective of the team. That's not of the coaches. That's not of anybody else. That's just my personal opinion of the way that I saw it, because I think that he was having his way with him to start, and it's just once he faded, that's when Glover was able to take over.
That makes a lot of sense. And for our listeners that maybe don't know what happened to Anthony prior to that, like I think it was a week, or it might have been a month prior to that.
It was a couple of weeks, but it wasn't long. It was
somebody
less
literally
than a month.
broke into his house, and did they have a firearm? They had some sort of weapon, I think.
They didn't have a firearm, but the guy was out of his mind on some sort of designer drug.
Jesus.
Yeah, just out of his mind, and like screaming.
Broke into the wrong fucking house, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no.
But still, that's traumatic for anybody to go through. Like,
absolutely. And the thing is it's one thing, I feel like, if it were, if it's just you or just I, in a house that way. But when you have your family to also think about, when
that's
you have
a whole nother level.
Your 3 children in the house, and you know that the only thing that is stopping whatever imminent threat may be coming is you being in front of that, or you going and getting rid of that threat, that's a real life gut check moment. There's a lot of times where people want to think that, when somebody presents me with this sort of threat or this sort of adversity, I would just do this. I would just do that. Well, it's a lot easier said than done. It's a lot easier said than done until that smoking gun is essentially right there in your face. Obviously, that's proverbial in this situation. There wasn't any sort of action, but the threat was there in that way, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Then, in the Rakic fight, hey, leg kick just happened. I mean, the guy who's a big, strong, powerful dude was able to throw him off once that happened. Whatever, that happens. That's
dude,
done.
Anybody can have a bad day. I don't care who you are in that cage. And at that level,
and that's also
all those
look at
dudes
it
are
for
killers,
what
man.
it is. Once you're at that level, just like you said, when you're talking that you have a number next to your name in the UFC, everybody's good. Everybody on any given night, it can be their night.
Yep.
If you're even half a smidge off and you leave that window of opportunity for someone to capitalize on, you have to think that if that guy is really worth his salt and has earned that ranking, when you give him that moment of opportunity, it's just like that, and he's going to capitalize on it. Just like if the shoe were on if it were on the other foot, if he were to give you that moment to strike or that moment to capitalize, you're going to do that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's just the nature of the beast. It's a kill or be killed sort of sport, and unfortunately, there's only one person who has, through a triumphed championship level career, kept that 0 next to their name intact with no asterisks. There's only one throughout the entire history of the sport. So by the law of averages, at some point, you're going to meet that adversity. You're going to have that lesson. You are going to fail when it comes to winning. But it's a matter of, where do you go from there? Do you let the adversity of that lesson consume you? Do you start questioning everything that you did leading up to that point? Do you start thinking, I need to change this, need to change that? Well, if you felt confident going into that fight and you were competitive, you went out there and you competed and it just didn't go your way, then that's the wrong thought process to have. You just need to go back and you need to trust yourself, because eventually everybody is going to have that bit of adversity. Yeah, there may be some holes that get exposed in that fight. You may learn, hey, you know what? I need to do a little bit more better defensive wrestling, so I'm not having to work off of my back all the time.
Yep.
I need to work better on my down blocks. I need to sprawl a little bit more. I need to be able to shoot the underhook and cut the angle a little bit better so he isn't as easily able to get a hold of me. Little things like that you may be able to take away, but for some of the people who go start wanting to change absolutely everything, I believe that that's the wrong approach.
I encourage anybody that's a fan, just go get on a jiu-jitsu mat 1 or 2 times and you'll understand a lot more, right? And you'll probably be hooked a little bit. I mean, people are pretty chill in a gym and they're not out to kill you. You know what I mean? Like, I encourage people to walk through that door, and especially if you're a fan, you know, because it brings it to a whole nother level or a whole nother understanding of what it's like. Because, example for me, firsthand, I can go smash on some guys 20 times over, right? Every time that we roll at the end of class. But then if I'm having a bad day or I make one mistake, they're up on me. You know what I mean? So it can happen to anybody at any time.
100%.
I think. Even the best in the world.
One of the guys who I look up to a great deal has been a major influence just for me, not in just the MMA space, but in terms of some of my business mindset or just the overall acumen of how to approach life, is James Krause. And James Krause, we last year, until the shutdown happened, every week we used to do a speech of the week where one person had a topic that they were assigned from a list from Coach Montoya, and you would give a speech to how that topic or how that concept related to you
cool.
in your journey. James Krause, his was essentially, the message of his was don't be a bitch. Like, everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit. And he said, the thing is...
I think I saw this post, man. Did you post it on Comments from the Peanut Gallery?
Yep, I've had that, and I've spliced the audio from that to a couple of different highlight reels with him. And I love the part where he talks about, hey, like, I'm cool with the darkness. But if you want to go through that 5 minutes and you let up at 4 minutes and 59 seconds, best believe that in that 1 second that you give me my chance, I'm ready to go.
Gangster, you go do it, right? And how do you do that? How do you be a gangster if you're not one? Guys, you got to throw yourself in the fire every fucking day of the week until you become one. You showed up and you busted motherfuckers' asses every goddamn day, or you got your ass busted. And look, after you do that for so long, it's just like, you're used to that. You live in the fire. You're good with that. So when motherfuckers bring heat at me, I'm good with that. I'm familiar with that area. Darkness and being in a shit place, whether it be life or MMA, I'm no stranger to that.
That was gangster as hell, man. Like, it inspired me. Like, I think I was sitting in my lazy boy recliner when I was watching it. And I was like, I got right the fuck up and went and walked the dog or whatever I did. I was like, damn, that was fucking inspiring as shit.
Definitely.
And that's the one thing that Mark does.
James Krause.
Yeah.
James
What a
Krause
stud,
is,
man.
he is arguably, he's going to be the breakthrough coach of the year. If he's not, then you got to question everybody who's out there controlling these from your different MMA awards platforms out there. Because if you look at it from this perspective, he has his, I hate to say small gym, but I don't know what the right way, because Glory has grown so much. It's not like they're
let's talk about that for a minute. Let's just talk about Denver in general, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a hub for professional fighters, whether you're a boxer, mainly UFC fighters, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because of the altitude, and that definitely helps with training. That's been proven. That's why the U.S. Olympic teams, a lot of them train here. But, I mean, you got fighters and coaches, too, like Trevor Whitman, Coach Mark Montoya. You got Luke Cadillo over there with Trevor Whitman. Shout out to Luke. I mean, there's just – the list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. You got Gaethje. You got Anthony Lionheart-Smith. I mean, you can just go on forever, right? We could do a whole episode where we're just name dropping.
Exactly.
But why do you think that is?
I think that it's kind of a variety of factors, to be honest. First and foremost, the UFC got its start in Colorado. Back in '93, when the very first event happened, that was at Big Mac. That was at McNichols Arena. So I think that there's always kind of been
which has been decimated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that there's, to a certain extent, there's always been that sort of community that existed in Denver that was willing to embrace the culture. If they were willing to embrace it enough to say, hey, let's put on this, at the time, freak show spectacle of an event, then maybe that has a little bit to do with it. There is, just like you say, it's a very healthy population in Colorado as a whole. So there's been, through time, I feel like, as more eyes have grown to the sport, a lot of those people who were in the fitness side of things, well, how many times do you get through, a little bit of a workout, and this is just fitness people in general, where you start to get bored, where you start to get, it's a little bit stale in what you're doing with training, or maybe, I like lifting weights and I like, running and all that is cool, but I just get bored with it through times. Well, you go out and, just like you mentioned, you go to a jiu-jitsu gym and you step on the mats there. That is a never-ending puzzle piece. You're always constantly, like, you're still lifting, like, you're still doing weight and resistance training. It's just in a different state than you would be in a gym setting, in a fitness center.
And a super high cardio level. I mean, that's what I love about it. Like, you don't realize, for me anyways, I'm just a big guy trying to survive out there, honestly. And you don't realize how much exertion you're putting out, or how much of a workout you're getting out of it, unless you strap on one of those heart monitors or something like that. And you go back and look at it, you're like, holy shit. I just burned 1,200 calories in 45 minutes.
Absolutely.
And I only rolled 15 minutes.
Right. Uncle Chael always says, I challenge the common person out there, just Joe Schmo, who's sitting on the couch watching fights, who is I'd have gotten out of that sort of thing. Go just put a timer out there for 30 seconds and just punch at the air for as hard as you can, as fast as you can for 30 seconds. Can you get through that, and how crisp or how winded are you by the time that you get through that? And that's 30 seconds.
Right.
Are you able to withstand another 14 minutes and 30 seconds that it would take for you to get through a regular bout, much less add another 10 minutes on top of that when you're talking championship and main event fights?
And that's why I love going to the open mats that I used to go to, and I haven't been going lately just because I have some family members that are compromised, so I've been doing some different workouts, and also I take some breaks off for elk hunting season, big archery hunter, and like to spend a lot of time doing that.
Especially you fill that freezer with meat.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's a worthy exchange.
That's what it's all about. Unfortunately, this year I didn't get an elk. Fucking sucks. But anyways, I had a great time. It's a good time. Got to spend it with my brother and stuff, and some of my uncles. Great time. Wouldn't trade any of that. But yeah, man, it's just freaking jiu-jitsu is, if you go to one of those open mats after you've gotten a little bit of training, you're rolling for a full hour. And sometimes there'll be guys like after that hour, when it's actually over, they're like, hey, you want to get another 2 rolls in? And then you're another 10 minutes there, So,
yeah.
And you're just walking out of there toasted.
Oh, definitely.
It's definitely an eye-opening experience. Like, fuck, man, if I was really in battle, could I last this long? Or, you know what I mean? Like, it puts it in perspective big time.
So many people out there, Bobby, have such a skewed perspective on what they would actually be able to do if shit hit the fan and they had to be in a position to defend themselves. Like, and that's not just your not working out sort of guy who sits there and has cookie crumbs on his chest. That's even there's guys that come into the gym that are hard bodied, that look like they're killers, but then they step out on them. When you don't have technique against somebody who knows what they're doing.
100%.
And I'll tell you, one of the biggest ass whoopings that I've taken out there, or one of the most, I guess, damage inducing. I had a shiner for like 2 weeks, and I told the story that it was a gorilla that escaped from the zoo, but it was really and truly, I have to give credit to one of my training partners and friends, Celine Haga, and she's 120 pounds, but she is an absolute killer on the mat. And when you want to start talking to someone who knows technique, to where they show like, hey, this is why jiu-jitsu, the quote-unquote gentle art, is something that you don't have to have a ton of size and strength to be an absolute killer in. Obviously, when you're talking to someone who's also trained, well, then that's where the size and strength comes in.
Right.
But when you have the ability to know exactly which lever to pull to elicit X reaction, there's nothing like that when you're in a combat setting. Just to be able to know, I make this one little movement that is going to make you do this, this, or this, and depending on what you give me, I'm going to take X, Y, or Z. Shout out to Professor Mario Kohei, a busy BJJ. That's our head professor over there at Factory X. It's always a blessing to be able to take his class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I've learned so much from being in that mix of that class, because you have to get invited to that class.
That's awesome.
And so that was, first and foremost, that was an honor for him to say that, hey, you've gotten to the point to where you can be able to come and be in this class, and I'm not worried that you're gonna like get carried off in a stretcher.
Right.
I still take my regular L's from all of my great friends and training buddies over there, but it's a great learning experience every single time. I've competed in a couple of tournaments now at this point, and have just had to see it from a whole different light on my own. And I feel like going through those nerves, making the walk. Obviously, it wasn't an actual MMA fight, but feeling those emotions, that's something that I feel like has helped me all across the board.
It's going to help you understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, as a creative, as someone who writes weekly columns, to a commentator that is calling it right there from the cage side. I feel like after seeing it from such a close level, I have a very good read on someone's demeanor as they make that those last couple of steps, that check-in point to where you start to get Vaselined up. They're checking your nails. They're making sure that you get that mouthpiece popped in. You have the cup check, all of that right then and there, right before you make those last few steps in. That, for so many guys, is the moment where, and this is not my words, this is coming from some of my friends who do fight. They said a lot of times it's in that little moment right there where you choose where you're going to win or lose.
Really? It makes sense, man.
It's weird. Like, I have a really great relationship with Austin Jones, who he was a running back at Nebraska. So, I mean, you want to talk about a dude who is an elite athlete who has just been able to, find success across the board. Goes over to Nebraska as a walk-on, earns a letter, has touchdowns scored, is in the Nebraska books for the rest of the time for being a Cornhusker football player.
Wow.
Makes a transition over into MMA, and he's also one of my coaches and jiu-jitsu coaches. Has been the person who I very first from day one stepped on the mat with, and just having guys like him talk about that, to where a lot of times losing becomes a choice. Obviously, it's not always the case, but that just hit me on so many different levels.
I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'm done.
There are those situations, but it's in life. I feel like he was talking to me. He was giving me one of those more so like, I'm giving you a life lesson, not just like a competition lesson. Sure. It's more times than not, you made the choice to concede that position, whether it's in life, in business, whatever the predicament might be. You were dealt some sort of financial hardship. Did you choose to crumble in that moment, or did you choose to dig in and swing your way out? Did you choose to fight until your last breath, until you could fight no more? Obviously, it's not always going to go your way. We've already hit on that. But if you don't fear the outcome, you trust in the process, the results are going to take care of themselves. And if you've come up short, I'll always use the Jocko line. Good. Yeah. That's something that you have the ability to then go back and learn from.
That's a great fucking point, man. I think you hit the nail on the head right there for sure. Just fucking keep going, no matter what it is. I think doubt gets people a lot.
It does. Doubt is the biggest killer of dreams. Yeah. The biggest killer of dreams out there. And I mean, let me ask you this and turn the spotlight on you for a second. Sure. Before you started this going, how many times before you actually pulled the trigger did you have those little doubts of, man, like, should I do this? Like, is this something that I really want to do? Like,
man, I was looking for so many fucking ways out. It's like making excuses for myself, like, oh, fuck, I don't have enough money, or I don't have the right personality, or I'll never get the guest that Joe Rogan has. I'll never, all that shit was going on in my mind. Just constant record playing. Mm-hmm. And then I would do shit like, and I'm glad that I did this. Like, I went to my wife and I said, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Will you support me in this? And thank God she said yes, because she was going to be my easy ticket to just, fuck it. I guess I'll just sit around the next 8 months, and which I totally could have in the industry that I was in. It's just totally crumbled. So, yeah, it's, there's been times where I've thought, like, am I doing the right thing? It still happens to this day. I'm like, It happened to me today. because you know what it's like to try to get a guest and have somebody booked, and maybe you'll have somebody booked and then they cancel on you like a day before or 2 days before, and I just try to be relaxed with it now. I try not to get worked up over it, and but even today I was just frustrated with it because I'm trying to set some shit up for the next couple of weeks before Christmas, and you know, I will question myself all the time, but it's every morning I wake up and it's not Groundhog Day, but it's a restart. You know, you coming in here tonight is a restart, and I'm having a fucking blast, dude. And that's what makes it all worthwhile, right?
Absolutely.
Like all the work leading up to it, and being able to sit down and talk to somebody that's educated, especially in a sport that I'm a major fan of. Probably not as big a fan as you, but man, it's just, I have fun doing it. And for me, that's what it's about. And if people don't like to listen to me, there's an off button. You know, I don't have a producer telling us like, you got to put out this many episodes. If we miss a week, which I set a goal for myself to have an episode every week, it doesn't always happen. You know, unless I was talking in here to myself, which I don't want to do.
Right.
So I was just like, you know, fuck it. If we miss a week here or there, we're going to miss a week. And if we lose fans over that, then I probably don't want them listening anyways.
Yeah, and at that, you know, the thing is you've already had a high episode count as it is, so you've been very consistent. That's the thing. And sometimes, yeah, you're going to have a week here, a week there where it doesn't go. But again, like you say, if someone is that willing to jump ship and no longer support you or hit the like button when you throw up your posts or anything like that, then, you know, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat that way. You know, because I'll give you that same exact thing from my side. It's tough sometimes, and especially with all the different hats that I wear and all the different areas to find that exact time for getting that episode. And because I do everything, like you have such an awesome setup here, man. Like, but like with my podcast, not the radio show, I do everything on my own, so it's all just a one-man operation.
Dude, I know how much it takes, man.
So it's a pain to
that's
go through.
That's incredible that you do it all on your own.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And it's not easy, but it's worth it. You know, especially to have some of those conversations and just to maybe get to know someone a little bit better that for some of them, it's guys that I know and I hang out with and talk to every single day, but we may peel back that layer of the onion that I didn't know about yet, or that maybe I knew a little bit of, but their fans and the people who follow them out there didn't know that aspect about them or of their life and what drives them.
I've sat down with friends or colleagues of mine that in my industry, you have to be friends because you spend so much time together if they're your colleague. If not, you're pretty much fucking ousted, man. It's a very military mindset, road dog mentality, firefighter mentality, but it's a roadies, you know, basically. And putting up rock shows, putting up lights, putting up rigging, building boxing settings, and, you know, that whole sort of thing. But
if you can't hang out at the end of the night, you're likely not going to be there the next time.
100%. And I've had some of those guys on. Like last week, I had a really good friend of mine do the podcast with me. He's also a musician, and we sat down, and I learned stuff about him that I never knew because we had the headphones on, we had a microphone, there was no cell phones distracting you, you know, like it's just a different level of conversation, and I'm so grateful for it. And the best part about it is also, you know, learning those things, but then meeting new people, you know, like I don't invite guests in that I don't want to talk to because it's not going to go good.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we dove into some politics, although I said I was never going to do that, but we dove into some politics a couple months back with the whole wolf integration here in Colorado, and we hit it pretty hot and heavy. And I found myself in that position where I was like, okay, some of these people I don't want to talk to, but I'm going to invite them in to give them their bit of time. And luckily they never stepped up to the plate.
But I mean, I feel like that has a political tie to it, but that's very relevant to,
I don't want to go down
your
that road again.
base, though. You know, like at least at the time when that was a ballot measure and all that sort of thing with the wolf, I don't feel that that was an off-brand sort of thing, though. It's not like you're going off and talking about some other crazy, like,
I don't feel like it's a politics thing.
No, I
feel like it's a biology
thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's a livelihood thing, too, for a lot of people and for Colorado in general. I mean, as much tax dollars as we gain off of marijuana and all the stuff that's in the spotlight, hunting is number one. Guaranteed. That's what pays for all the bridges that go over these rivers, pays for all the nice trails that you have. It pays for the wildlife that you're seeing and how it's managed. And, you know, if that goes away,
it's a huge
there's
impact.
a lot of our open space parks and national parks and stuff like that. They're going to go away. So I was concerned about it. I'm still concerned about it. I mean, it passed, but it sounds like they're going to take some steps they've already taken some steps to make it better. So if we can keep those steps in place, I think it'll be all right. As long as we're letting biologists manage that, then I think we'll be all right. But still not good.
No, yeah. I feel like any time that you reintroduce an apex predator into a situation like that, there's not going to be a great outcome for pretty much anything in the surrounding area, because they're not going to think anything different of going and just plowing through an entire herd of cows. You know, that mountain rancher's cattle who's up there, you know, grazing for the season, who they may not even be checking up on them every single day, or they may not be out there. But then they come back, you know, a few weeks later and they just see corpses.
Yeah.
And you have like, oh my God, what happened?
That's always the first argument too, but really it's not fair to the wolf either. Like, that was a point that came up right away when we first started talking about it. And I'm glad it came to light, because they're being taken from a place where they don't have any human interaction and being dropped into a place where there's fucking major highways. There's ranchers shooting at them now. Now you got hikers. Nobody where they're putting them, the people that live over there don't want them there. So it's like there's going to be fucking conflict. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
I never thought of it in that way. It's actually
it's not really fair to them either.
On the other side too. Yeah.
But anyways, I don't want to go down that road too much.
I
spent so much time. It's over now, and we'll just do our best to do what we can to help protect Colorado for what we know it is, you know. And
speaking of Colorado, though, man, you guys have, like I say, the setup in here is it's awesome what you guys have in here. But the drive was the total vibe setter though too. Yeah. Just coming right in, you see the snow just tenderly touching the foothills of the mountains as you drive in, the cascading orange and crimsons right over the mountain peaks as you're driving through the canyon and the valleys. It's just, like, this is everything that is the Mountainside Podcast. Like, total vibe setter. Was loving it all the way on the way in. That was a great way to really get me charged up and amped up to come on.
Well, that's awesome, man. I haven't heard it from that perspective, but I'm going to take some credit for that. That's why we schedule it around this time. I'm just kidding. But I never really thought about that, because I take it for granted, right? I don't go to Denver that much. Why would I? You know, I mean, there's no need to. I don't work down there or anything. This is what I do. It's right here.
Yep.
But every time that I drive up, you know, I think I take it for granted a lot, but the driving up I-70, and once you hit that Genesee Bridge that's right there, and there's the buffalo herds.
That's a picture
and frame. Just the mountain. I mean, I guarantee you can Google hundreds of pictures of just sunsets and all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, and you know, that's the whole reason I started this, was to help preserve. I grew up here, and I grew up right here actually in Evergreen, and you know, the influx in people that we've seen here and the way that I see some of our public lands being treated, I'm trying to raise some awareness about it and just help educate people on stuff, you know. But at the same time, I don't want to do that all the time. I want to have fun and have fun conversations. So we're kind of doing the best of both worlds, you know, and trying to have fun with it too. So,
Jordan, did you come up the canyon or I-70?
I came up Hampton, so
285.
Yep.
That's a beautiful drive too, man. Any way that you come up here, the next time you come up, especially if it's summer and the roads aren't slick, I urge you to come up through Red Rocks. I don't know if you've ever made that drive.
That's what I thought he did.
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Well, I have came through that way before. Just driving through from. I've done a lot of camping down in southern Colorado around like the Slida area, Chaffee County, Silver Creek, that whole sort of range.
That's badass too.
And so that's kind of the way to cut from Denver. My house is in Arvada, so being able just to cut that back way without having to I-25, then all the way down to to 24 or to Highway 50 or whatever that you have to go the super long way. If I can go that scenic route and get a little bit of a mountain drive to it, yeah, it's going to be slower at some points, but I don't care. I'm going camping for the weekend, which I don't have a whole lot of time to do. I used to go all the time. I used to go camping, fishing. I like hunting. I've just never been hunting a lot in my life. I went a lot more when I was younger. I've only went once in the last few years, and that was with Coach. That was with Coach Mark.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I went with him.
He's a big bow hunter, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I went with him on a pheasant hunting trip. I didn't hunt myself. I was filming for him and Anthony for Lionheart.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
This was in the camp leading up to when Anthony fought John Jones. But they went out for a day and did some pheasant hunting, and so I just got to tag along and be out there while they were shooting some bird, getting those roosters.
It's great just being out there. Like, honestly, I don't like killing animals. I mean, I do it for meat, but I'm not really like a sport hunter. Like, if you come to my house, you're not going to see big racks hanging on the wall. You'll probably never see me in a picture holding up a head or anything like that. It's just not my cup of tea, and I don't knock anybody that does that. I mean, there's to each his own on that. It's just my personal preference. That's how I handle it. But for me, it's more like, look at that. Being out there or seeing that view without a highway in it. Where I elk hunted this year it's a wilderness area, and it is some fucking rugged country. And there was a few moments where I was like, holy shit, did I bite off more than I can chew right now? Like, am I going to make it back to camp? I ran out of water. Am I prepared? Like,
oh, man.
I'm fucking 23 miles in right now, and I got to go, or I'm going to be 23 miles round trip before I make it back to camp. And sometimes what you think is easy, you're like, oh, it'll be easy because I went uphill for 12 miles, and I'll just go downhill for 12 miles back. Well, you got to go around fucking cliffs and fucking
switchbacks left and right.
Yeah. And then, thank God for modern technology, because, you can find your way back and navigate pretty easily now from a topo map and stuff. But yeah, man, it's just the experience of being out there, and I love being out there. I like taking photographs more than anything. Honestly, when I'm out there, like, I dibble dabble in photography, and that to me, like, to freeze that moment or in that spot, like our logo right there, I took that photo. That's up Forest Lake. That's a pretty good hike in. Catching an awesome cutthroat out of there off fly rods, and it's just a beautiful spot. And I just thought, this kind of encompasses what I want, all this crumbly rock and just, So yeah, that's kind of how we came up with the logo for it. But yeah, man, I'm a huge fan of outdoor sports. I'm a huge fan of the MMA. I'm not as big as a fan as you probably. I mean, you are so immersed in it. Do you have any fights that like stand out in your mind that are favorites? Like, I know I have my favorites.
So there's a ton. I mean, I have watched
let's
tens
say
of thousands,
top 2.
but if I were to say,
and I know it's hard to pick.
I'll give you a couple because of the moments and what they meant at that time.
This is a question I've been dying to ask you, yeah.
So I had watched some cards before. My dad has always been one, he's your Mr. Movies for guys who like movies, was always on. We watched wrestling when I was a kid, like always something like that in the mix, football, combat sports, whatever. And so I had been introduced to it a couple of times just from when he had been watching, but never really kind of started to take it in and like really gravitate toward it till I started wrestling myself. And one of the big guys on the rise at that time was Matt Hughes.
Stud.
And Matt Hughes at one point, I remember my dad got us the pay-per-view, and so we're watching Matt Hughes against Frank Trigg 2. And so when Matt Hughes, he starts off, he gets the nut shot.
Yep.
That goes by the wayside, doesn't get noticed by the referee. Frank Trigg starts choking him out. Matt's face is purple. I mean, he was turning colors like you wouldn't believe. Like you thought, oh, this is done. There's no way that he's getting out of this at this point.
Hey,
he
Jeremy,
is able to
if you
get
go to
himself
my
out.
Fight Pass, sorry to interrupt you. If you go to my Fight Pass, it's in my favorites. I know exactly what fight this is. Yeah,
that's hilarious. It wasn't things fighting me. I found it on. I found it here though.
Nice.
I think it's been.
But
long
yeah.
enough.
That's right after the nut shot, and so he knocks him down, and then he goes.
Wait.
And he gets the
I gotta
back
find.
mount.
I gotta find the nut shot.
So it's gonna come through.
That's
this.
back when they used to wear long shorts, man. Those look cool.
Some still do, but not many anymore.
Yeah.
That's part of the UFC, part of their jersey kits. You do get to choose. Some guys will go with long ones. Cowboy usually goes with some longer shorts, but very few and far between at this point, just because it's something that you can kind of grab onto.
This was such a good fight. I'm going to have to go back and watch this again. It's been a while.
But yeah, you see Frank, and there was real beef going into this fight too. So
All right, we're back on. Little technical difficulties there. We fucking lost the audio track for a minute, but we're back.
all good. Shit happens, man. Shit ain't shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, just as we were talking right as it was dropping off, there was real beef going into this fight, this rematch of Frank Trigg and Matt Hughes, and there was a lot of verbal warfare going on, especially from Frank Trigg, and then Matt Hughes also making the statement that that basically if you get rear naked choked, then he kind of said that that's kind of a soft move. That was the way that Matt Hughes had kind of trivialized Frank Trigg because he choked him out the first time. Right. And so then it was a thing of, oh shit, Frank Trigg is actually potentially going to rear naked choke Matt once the nut shot happened. And then as you're seeing here, where they're where he's choking him and he starts to lock it in, Matt's face starts to turn purple. But then I mean, technically speaking though, Matt is doing the right things. He's fighting the hands. He's trying to keep from that bottom arm being the choke arm. And then eventually, when you're slippery, it's just going to happen. When someone has hooks in and they start to try to flatten you out or you go turtle like that, you're going to leave an opportunity. But the resiliency from Matt Hughes and for him to have that mile-wide, like cinder block neck,
God, man.
Country boy can survive. And then right here, he's about to pick him up and run him across the octagon and fucking slam him.
I wonder if Cowboy's a fan of Matt Hughes. You think?
I would have to imagine that if he's not a fan, there's at least a level of respect for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that there is.
They're both very polarizing guys.
Yeah,
I've met both of them. Matt Hughes is actually a guy that a lot of my current training partners came up under at the Hit Squad. So, I say training partners, but they're far beyond me. They're guys that I look up to a great deal, like your Dustin Jacobys of the world. Dustin Jacoby, when he first went to the UFC, when he was 23, he was just only a few months at the Hit Squad with all those guys out, Robbie Lawler, Brian Foster. Then also got to give a shout out to the crazy cowboy Kurtz Coleman. Kurtz has been another big mentor who's just always been someone willing to pick up the phone or provide a little bit of guidance or, hey man, what do you think of this? Just running something by him. That's always someone who I will forever be grateful for. I've gone out to Oklahoma a couple of times to Bellator events, and the crazy cowboy always made sure that I was taken care of. So that's stuff that I will never forget. When I was,
that's dope, man.
And I'm still very young in the game, still very green. I haven't reached anywhere near where I think I'm gonna be able to reach.
So do you train weekly, or are you training?
I train, pretty much 6 days a week, but
Damn.
For those classes, like with the advanced guys like Professor Busy's class, you can loosely call it training and mostly me getting my ass whooped by a lot of these guys. And then I'll do the fundamentals classes with Coach Austin, and then Wednesday nights I've stopped doing the Wednesday night classes just because of my radio show, but I always learned a lot from Professor Brandon Royval. And then on Saturday mornings, Brandon teaches the classes when he's not in camp. And you want to talk about a guy who is just unreal in terms of being an artist. Like, he's truly like poetic out there doing jiu-jitsu. The stuff that you see Brandon do it's like Bob Ross with a paintbrush.
Really?
the kid
I mean,
is
watching
just
him
so
fight,
unreal,
it shows.
man.
Yeah.
Like his jiu-jitsu is so good, and then that's just his jiu-jitsu. That's not even talking when you start allowing him to strike or you start bringing in his game on the feet. Because I've maintained this position for years now that Brandon Royval is, without a doubt, the most exciting fighter on planet Earth to watch. Maybe that's that I'm very close to the force and I'm a little bit biased on that one because he is someone who is a friend of mine. I've seen him for years, just from the LFA scene all the way up through now. But I truly believe that his style of fighting, the pace that he puts on people, is
It's
electrifying.
incredible.
Yeah. It's electrifying. He's he calls himself an ADD fighter because he says that he can never not be doing something. He feels like if he's still for a moment, that there's something that he's not doing. That's what he said on my podcast one time when I asked him about just his pace. He's always constantly moving. And like seeing the way that he's able to put a pace on guys, there's a reason why he is excelled to where he's at in the UFC in terms of the rankings with only having a couple of fights there. And I don't give a damn what anybody says out there. He was going to win that fight against Brandon Moreno. You could see just the way, and again, maybe it's that I know Brandon and I know that.
And he's about to fight for a title, isn't he?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Whoever won that fight was going to get the next title shot. But knowing Brandon and knowing where he's comfortable, what he's able to get out of, that whole sort of thing, I at no moment during that first round did I think that he was in a truly threatened position. Did it look a little bit bad when Moreno had his back and was threatening with the did it look a little bad? Sure, but
well, then he had the shoulder dislocation, right? Too that happened.
That was from trying for the takedown. That was when Brandon was trying to pull in Moreno's leg for the takedown, and then it popped out. But even at that, what a fucking gangster to be sitting there trying to pop your own shoulder back in before the round ends so you can continue fighting.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean,
big fan of it.
Put it this way: it got stopped at the 4-minute and 59-second mark of that first round. That's when Mark Goddard stepped in. Had it got through that next second, Brandon gets back to the stool. There's a good chance that Mark pops it right back in, just like they did, the way that they showed it on camera, and he continues along. And obviously, there's been trauma, there's been injury to the joint and to ligaments around there, and it's now also been confirmed per the news that came out. So I don't feel bad in saying that there was some damage done, or I'm not revealing anything that isn't public knowledge at this point.
Have they said how long he's going to be out, or do you know? You had ever heard anything?
I don't know if his recovery timeline is public, so I won't go that far. Yeah, but what I do know is that there was a slight tear and that there was some minor fractures in the area.
Yeah.
So that's what I can speak to. That's what's public.
Yeah.
But again, though, someone like him. So you see,
dude, this is Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, exactly. But so right from there, that's back in, and he had been. And I just saw I could read his
speaking of
face.
gangster.
Yeah.
Look at that zoom right here. Hang on a second. Watch this.
Fucking Montoya.
That cold stare.
Yeah.
The way that Mark just stared, like
stared right.
You
watch,
feel like
he's
he's about to suck your soul right here.
Watch.
Are you zooming in on that, or is
no, that was the
something
video.
that ESPN
Yeah,
did?
yeah.
Oh, that's fucking
Thank
G.
God for
what
the internet.
G.
The internet stays undefeated. But yeah, right then and there, that was Coach looking like he was soul snatching the cameraman right there, like get that fucking camera off of me right now. But yeah, someone like Brandon. I mean, if you look at that fight, you look at his fight that he won the LFA title against Nate Williams a year ago, last November. That fight was 22 seconds of absolute violent mayhem. I mean, starts off with
that was crazy.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, it was a fucking awesome fight, man.
Throwing leather up top. Then they get to the ground. Goes from triangle to armbar to omoplata, then back. I can't remember the exact, but I'm pretty positive that's how the sequence went. Before he ultimately got the armbar, and just the way that it was just boom, 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 transition to transition to transition. Well. How much more entertaining can you be? That was when he was still on the outside looking in, waiting to finally get his opportunity. I mean, this kid has deserved a spot in the UFC for so long now at this point, and you see it as evidenced by what he's done in his fight since he's been in there. I mean, he goes in there against Kai Kara France, and Kai threw the right hand that it did connect, but how much of a G was Brandon to still maintain his composure and have enough wherewithal to know that his
it was like
spinning
a quick
back
reset.
elbow was open? And yeah, I mean, because he was still somewhat jelly-legged at that moment when he threw the spinning back elbow, but that's someone who has supreme confidence. That's somebody who is put in their 10,000 hours. That's a dude who has chopped wood and carried water more times than anybody can even imagine. That was something that was second nature. When he was in that moment to where, hey, this could be it
for Pedro moment right there, right?
Yeah, well, we do have we have our own Pedro, Jonathan Martinez.
Oh, okay.
We call it. Yeah, that's a different gangster.
Okay,
that we have.
cool.
Yeah,
All right.
he's a killer too. But
I couldn't
no.
remember which memes were going on for that, but I thought it was Raval. So,
but that was in that moment though. Once again, when you start talking, like you make the choice. Like
right.
you got rocked right then and there. Do you allow the opportunity for him to pounce on you to potentially finish you, or do you in that moment while you still have an ounce of fight and wits about you,
you're about to go down,
do you try to throw something to keep yourself alive? We call it, or I shouldn't say we, Phoenix Carnivale, who was the media, the third person on the broadcast team for LFA for years and years before the Access TV deal got canceled. Which I love Phoenix. Phoenix is she's a friend, and she's just such a wonderful person. And I hope that somebody out there gives her the chance to pick her up for broadcast again, because she's phenomenal. She was Laura Sanko before Laura Sanko, but her coinage to the way that Brandon's style is hood violence. She's like, you just have that hood violence. You come out here, you have that energy. You're either, if you go to the ground, you're going crazy with submissions, submitting somebody left and right, or you're. And it's also that too. He has the pace of a street fight with elite world class technique.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of the internet has called him like a mini Diaz. I think that's a fair comparison based off of his volume, his style, his insane jiu-jitsu. But I will up the ante to it. He's far technically superior than the Diaz brothers are. And circling back to the discussion that we were having earlier about fights or people who really got me ingratiated into the sport. My all-time favorite fighter is Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is who really kind of, after Matt Hughes had gotten me captivated as being kind of the wrestler guy, I also grew up in Pueblo, Colorado. So Pueblo's a little bit of a different breed.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different element for those out there who may not be familiar with the town and the city. And so that fight back in the day of Nick Diaz with Robbie Lawler, where Nick Diaz is just sitting there like, Stockton, motherfucker, just like standing there like true street fight sort of thing, like what, bitch, what?
Yeah.
Like that whole sort of thought process.
The McGregor-Diaz fight for me too with Nate, the second one. Was gangster as fuck too, where he like flipped him off during the fight. It was just, that was such a good fight, man.
But it was
those guys
so
went fucking at it.
organically them that's why it works. That's why those guys can do that sort of thing.
Right.
That's why when Nate had Kurt Pellegrino in the triangle, which actually was here in Denver, that was at the First Bank Center, where he throws up the double birds as soon as he locks up the triangle, and just because. Like, what kind of gangster do you have to be so supremely confident in your technique, in your execution of said technique, that in a big stage fight in the UFC, you are able to right then and there just coast all the way till he taps, and you're flexing, you're flipping the double birds, and you're just waiting for them to raise your hand. You're waiting for the referee to come and pull you off at that point.
It's crazy.
That's someone who, once again, that confidence comes from, though, you put the work in. You put all of those hours into the gym, into your drilling, into your one-on-one sessions with coaches, into those rounds that you're just going forever and ever with your training partners, however many hours of sparring that you put in with your camp, with your partners, and with your coach's guidance through that mix. They might put you in the Shark Tank a time or two, and you were able to weather that adversity coming out after doing how many rounds, with different fresh bodies leading into it. That is you going in there, and you're able to run into the storm. So at Factory X, we have a saying called "Fear is forging elite athletes running into storms." Coach Mark uses the water buffalo as his kind of symbolic figure for it, because and in general, the buffalo runs into a storm.
Yep.
If you're confident that you have some shit that's going to get you through it, you're going to run into that storm 10 times out of 10, and you're not going to worry about the outcome.
It's a lot more than just fight lessons, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one thing, though, that I do also have to give credit to Coach Mark is Coach challenges you to be a champion in life, and then a champion in the cage, or champion in whatever your other ventures are in life. whether it's you as that bit in your business or side hustles or those projects, you got to be a champion in life first. So and with that, he's challenged everybody. He doesn't make it a requirement, but it's a learning opportunity. We have a book of the month every month. And so for a lot of folks, you start thinking like, man, like how does reading books, like how does that relate to fighting, or how does that, make someone a better martial artist or something like that?
It's huge. He picks out some great books too, man.
He does.
Yeah.
They're incredible in that way. And it's, again, Coach doesn't make it a requirement.
I read a book just recently because of Mark, actually, this year because of Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a growth opportunity.
He didn't directly say like you should read this, but just talking to him and following him on Instagram and shit. So, and they've been both awesome books. So.
We had a pretty in-depth conversation about it at the beginning of the year when we first started up with doing the MMA plug content. We did a couple of coach spotlights, and unfortunately this happened just before the initial shutdown of COVID stuff happened, so haven't been able to really get that series back up off the ground. The entire idea behind the spotlight series is we're going around to the different gyms around the state of Colorado and profiling coaches. We only got through 2 episodes, so we had Coach Mark as well as Coach Elliot Marshall from Elevation Fight Team.
Sweet.
But in the discussion with Coach Mark, he talked about why he feels that it's important to read books, and that he himself for a long time was never a reader. But more times than not, it's not that somebody isn't a reader or doesn't like reading. You just haven't found the right material to consume.
It's got to be perfect material for me to consume,
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and for so many, especially in a fight world or in an athletic setting in general, where you don't have to read to be good at your job as a fighter per se. But I feel like it's the gained cerebral perspective from some of these books, and there may be some of them that, hey, that may not be your cup of tea. That might have been a little bit too positive of just a rah-rah sort of thing, whereas you get a little bit more motivation from a David Goggins versus a John Gordon. Both great.
Yeah.
Both great. But John Gordon is always going to be hitting the positivity stick. He has the power of a positive team, the power of positive leadership, the energy bus, the coffee bean. A lot of these great books that are just all about constantly plugging that positive energy, that positive vibe. But then there's going to be a lot of people. The book that changed my life was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. That
book is so hardcore, man.
Like that was the life changer when it comes to reading books. That, and then there's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
That's another one. Those are the 2 biggest, I feel like, if everything that I could take away from the last
both great books, by
year
the way.
of books that we've read as a team, those have to be my 2 highlight pieces, because Goggins, I've gone through that audiobook about 6 times now, and it's great every single time. I might just go back for a chapter here and there on my Audible account and just listen to him tell that story of that time, where he's going through the bad heat of preparing for the Blackwater race, and just those little things. Just hearing him talk about making friends with the darkness, trying to be uncommon amongst uncommon people.
Who's going to carry the boats?
Exactly.
That side of it is
and
just
the
fucking
40%
crazy.
threshold is something that I truly believe in, that Goggins talks about in that book. I don't know if you remember that concept.
100%, yeah.
I think that is so accurate that so many people don't even come close to achieving what they could in life, whether it is something that you're just looking for on a personal level.
And I'm probably going to fuck this up, but for the listeners that haven't read the book, and I don't want to spoiler alert, go check it out, go download it. I highly recommend the audio version. But the 40% is, it's basically nobody ever really reaches 100% of what they're capable of, right?
Mm-hmm.
They only ever reach 40% because of that demon that's in the back of their mind or whatever it is.
Exactly. It's that self-doubt. It's you start imposing limitations on yourself that are false and that don't really exist. That's a false barrier that so many people, that's when you're running, and that's where, when he talks about, he relates it to when he's doing his ultra marathons. But I think it's something that a lot of people can just on a regular, just down to earth level be able to bring some sort of correlation to your life to, is you're getting through a long run, for example, and there's going to be a time where, oh man, like you start to feel your breath a little bit, your breathing starts to get off, and then your legs start to feel a little bit heavy. But more times than not, that's just that inner bitch that's creeping in. You have a lot further that you can
Goggins, because he just says it like that. It's your inner bitch.
It is. But he's accurate in that. It's a thing of you have to figure out a way to bust through, and in a physical fitness sort of situation, you've got to bust through those fatigue barriers. And sometimes when it's it could be also in business though. You may, oh man, I've done so much work, I'm just tired. Like it
really comes down to discipline, right? I mean,
100%.
I mean, you read any of those Jocko books, you read Goggins, any of these self-help books, a lot of it is just discipline and repetition.
100%. And that's where when some people want to ask, where do I draw my correlation to some of that? It's showing up every day. Because as a creative, and as you know too, not everything that you do is going to be good. Yeah. Not everything is going to be.
Tell me about it.
and sometimes you do get self-conscious of it. That doubt does creep in. But you know the easiest way to get over a dud? To put out another fucking piece.
Yeah, exactly.
To show up the next day and, cut another dope video. Do another interview. Maybe that you just didn't have the right chemistry with that guest to where,
God, I've had times where I just fumbled all over myself and I sound like an idiot, I think, but
and sometimes
it really
it's not on
way.
you. You could have done everything right, and it's nothing against the guest, but sometimes, people who are not used to being interviewed and talking about themselves, sometimes you kind of shut down a little bit, or maybe,
and that's where you need to step up to the plate a little bit too, right? I guess if you're, and I urge anybody that has even just the slightest thought, like I should start a podcast, and they don't do it, just go fucking do it. It's not that hard.
You can do it for free with Anchor.
Exactly.
Like an app that you download to your smartphone. You can do it literally right from there.
You can do it all from your smartphone.
That's how I started. I started from just a smartphone. Yeah. I started from just a smartphone to then graduated into having a little kind of shitty desktop mic that was going around on a laptop and sitting in Chris Camosi's office.
I think I saw your post where it was like where I was it like 3 years ago, and then like where I am now. It was fucking awesome, man. I was like,
yep,
this is G, man. Like just keep doing it, So.
It is, and that's the biggest thing, man. Is just do it. If you have that thought that you want to pursue it or at least kick the tire, you owe it to yourself to do it. I feel like if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that tomorrow's not promised. Life can change in the blink of a fucking eye to where something may never be the same. But if you get to that crossroads of your life and you didn't try, then you will always have a bit of resentment and regret. And that may be, sometimes you got to get out of your own way. It may be that you think that, oh man, nobody's going to listen to me. Nobody's going to want to hear what I have to say. Well, how do you know? How do you know? Because if you're really passionate about it and you work your ass off towards something, then people are going to, first and foremost, game recognized game, people will see hustle and people will respect hustle. Then at that point, once you get that level of respect in the game, or people at least have the attention, then it's on you to figure out how to deliver. That's where it separates who can do this long-term or who doesn't.
And that's why I respect you so much. I mean, I'm going to say it right here on the air, man. I respect what you're doing because of your hustle and the way that you do it, and the way that you carry yourself and talk is incredible, man. If I can do half of that, I'll be super happy, man. And Jordan, man, you're blasting all over so many platforms, man. It's crazy. And I love that. And I love that you're branching out, and I aspire to do that someday. I'm hoping that I can start a couple more podcasts here pretty soon, on different subjects. But what's next for you? Do you have any more ideas? Are you cooking up more? Or are you just trying to concentrate on what you got going right now? Because right now you're basically 3 separate shows, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, there's the 3, and then now that Devontae Smith is back in Denver, since he's been cleared to fight, he's been out for a year with an Achilles injury. Devontae and I, we had our own cooking show. Prior to when he got hurt. We called it King's Kitchen. His nickname is King Cage, and so it just kind of parlayed perfectly. I put together this little beat through just cheap. I just used. I could use some help
with that. Are you guys like baking cookies and shit, or are you like grilling meat, or what's the anything and everything, or
pretty much anything? And we started off. We had a couple of episodes. Like one of them we did because it was right at that time when the Popeyes chicken sandwich was all the craze, like Popeyes chicken sandwich versus Chick-fil-A sandwich. Okay. So we said, okay, well then let's do the King Cage's chicken sandwich sort of thing. And then we did a couple of them though. We did fan submissions. So he put it up on his Instagram like, hey, what would you like to see me cook? And so we got through, like, I think about a month's worth of episodes, and we had just picked up a sponsor. Shout out to Oh My Spice and Seasonings. And then that's when he got hurt the next week.
Oh, shit.
And so then, obviously, I mean, he had to go through all of his surgery, rehab, all of that. Went back to Cleveland for a few months back home. That's where he still lives. He just comes out to Denver and does his camps. But with him being back out here, me and Devontae have such a great chemistry, and that's when we started. When we hit on this a little bit. There's those people that just give an energy off, that they just kind of have this aura about them that person makes you better when you're around them. That's who Devontae Smith is. Like it's a different energy in the room when Devontae's around. He's someone who he takes it serious whenever we do any of our media stuff. Or there's a lot of guys that I'll do promo clips or other work for that are just like, hey, well, whatever you feel like is good. And it's not to say that one is any more right than the other. I'm not trying to put anybody on blast that way. But Devontae is very involved with his affairs. He wants to know, like, okay, we're doing this. Why are we doing it this way? Why is this the angle? Or what is the reason for this behind? And we just communicate very well, and it's a thing of we speak to it, and then all right, well that's what we see that same end result, I guess is the best way to say it.
That's awesome. And it's a cooking show.
Exactly.
Is this you guys right here?
Yep.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yep. This is the cooking show, and so.
You got to have pretty hands to do a cooking show, though, right? You guys going to go get manicures and all that?
I don't think that'll work too well with a fighter that way. But so we want to know a funny story tied with this. So this was
what do you got in the pan there? Some garlic?
Butter and some garlic. So
hell
this
yeah.
was garlic
Can't fuck
butter
it up with butter and garlic.
To put over. This was the steak episode.
Okay.
Where he cooked up some steaks. But one of the episodes, there was bacon in one of the recipes, and so. This was in Yusuf Zalal's kitchen. Yusuf the Moroccan Devil Zalal's kitchen. Yusuf is a devout Muslim.
Right.
And so Devontae was staying at Yusuf's at the time, and Yusuf was actually in Morocco. He actually just went out to Morocco for the holidays right now, but he was in Morocco at the time, and he sees that we were cooking bacon. And obviously we're in Yusuf's kitchen, and so we're using like his cookware, and he hits up Devontae like, hey, motherfucker, why are you cooking bacon in my shit? Like, right. You know I can't have that. I did not even think of that, to be completely honest. That was not even something that crossed mine or Devontae's mind. And we're just like, well, shit. That's our bad. Our mess up. But yeah, I created a little beat for this, and it just kind of has that like Rick Ross sort of vibe to it.
Hell yeah.
Devontae's a big hip hop fan, and with just kind of keeping the royalty theme, like King's Kitchen, it just kind of had that like lavish sort of feel to it, like the Ashton Martin music. So anybody who's listened to like Rick Ross or any of your base who might be hearing it, that's kind of what was the inspiration to it, was that era of Rick Ross music, just that like super lavish, celebratory. We're eating shrimp and lobster, steaks, like just sashimi all over the place, sort of like high deal, selling it. We're trying to sell it. We're in the King's Kitchen,
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, there's the bacon right there.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no,
we'll be watching for that. You guys got to keep up on that for sure.
He was also this is another show that I've done a few episodes of that I want to bring back. It's just tough in terms of resources. I don't have all of the infrastructure things to make it the best qualitatively, but I have a show that's called Punching Buttons, and so that's where we pair fighters with a comedian. Nice. And so they just basically they play the UFC video game, and they're fighting on the game, and then just verbal sparring back and forth with each other. And so Devontae was the pilot episode of that project, and it was just it was awesome because Devontae period is like a walking meme sometimes with his commentary. Like if anybody follows him out there at KOE_King Cage UFC, some of the most funny commentary bits that you can see on Instagram stories of him he calls it cooking people. Like I'm cooking him. And he's salty. He's salty. Yeah. Like once he just goes in and just because he's actually really, really good at the video game.
Sure.
And so, yeah, he just talks ridiculous, insane shit the entire time, and it's hilarious. Yeah, so that's Denver Comedy Zone, Kevin Moan right there. So shout out to Kevin. He does comedy everywhere. I've seen him at Comedy Works to other shows and sets out there. Denver has such a great comedy scene too.
It
overall.
does, man.
It's very underrated.
We got all kinds of different scenes here, man. The music scene's good here too.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the greatest concert venue on planet Earth here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And the people who always come here that don't know, like, nah, man, you got to see a show at Red Rocks. Like, you've never
100%.
truly seen a concert unless you've seen a show at Red Rocks.
Hands down.
There's guys that get enamored just by going up there. When we did a couple of the Road to my short films that it's basically think like
A lot of
UFC
guys train
embedded.
up there, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We
Running the steps.
went up there with Pedro, with Jonathan Martinez, with Chris El Guapo Gutierrez, Markel Maderos, Adam Mini Hunt Martinez, and Alexander the Great Hernandez, and we shot some content up there. I want to say it was probably
For people that are listening to that don't know, it's not just a concert venue; it's a national park. That's how beautiful this place is, and if you can imagine what national parks are like,
Yep.
you can pretty much put it in perspective just by that.
And so they were, they were running steps. That was the big deal of what the workout was for the day, going up there to Red Rocks. And Alex Hernandez, first and foremost, that dude is a beast. He's a freak athlete. That guy is top tier, one of the best in the world. And he found a good pace, or he was able to hit stride running up the steps. But SportsCenter actually on Instagram, I think it was 2 days ago, put up a post of some guy. I don't even know who he is. Shout out to the dude, whoever SportsCenter decided to repost from Red Rocks. But this guy went from the bottom all the way to the top in 15 seconds. Like
What?
15.3 seconds.
Running the bleachers or the stairs?
So if you were like center stage, running all the way up to the top.
Yep. Running the bleachers.
Yep, running the bleachers.
Damn.
Yeah, in 15.3 seconds.
From the stage to the top. That's
Yes.
fucking insane, dude.
Insane. The pace that guy had going, I was, oh my God, like this dude is, some track and field unit out there missed
God
this
damn,
guy.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
is this it right here, Jeremy?
I don't know that guy's name. I'm just looking up. It'll probably all be randos.
Yeah.
Some dude.
Yeah,
That's
if you go to
crazy. I'm gonna have
the
to watch for
Sports
that.
Center Instagram, it's one of the reels that they shared either like yesterday or the day before, something like that.
Cool.
But yeah,
we'll load that in.
That guy blew my mind when I was, because hey, I was with other like elite athletes out there, and their time was impressive. But then when I saw this guy do it, I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, granted, that dude probably wouldn't be able to, last 5
Right.
minutes in a grappling situation, which is an entire different level of cardio and different. But at the same time, none of those guys were able to run it in 15 seconds. I sent it to Alex.
Oh, here it
There you
is
go.
right here.
Holy shit!
Yeah, look at this shit. Look at this guy's stride.
God damn, man. That is insane.
Yeah, I timed it on my own after watching it the first time to see, and then I sent it off to Alex, because Alex is a hyper competitive dude. I mean, there's a reason why he's that good at what he does, is because he has that belly, or that fire that burns bright in his belly. Yeah. So I sent it to him, like, man, 15.3, this dude was cooking.
He's going to be out
He's
there
like,
doing it.
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
He said, we got to run this back and get those numbers up.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, shit, man, you got a lot of irons in the fire, man. I love what you're putting out, so keep putting it all out. And if you ever need our help promoting something, we're here for you,
man.
bro.
Anything
So-
I could do on the flip side too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I view it all as a community, like we were talking before the podcast. So yeah, man, I really appreciate what you're doing. And before we jump off here, and I know you have a lot of them, so take your time. We're not in any hurry. But tell people where they can find you, what different shows, where you want them to go. I know you got websites, you got all kinds of different stuff, and I'd screw it up if I tried to name them all.
No,
So
you're good, man. So there's definitely a few places that you can see and find my work. So first and foremost, where I'm the most active, or where you're most likely also to be able to reach me if you ever wanted to, is through Instagram at Comments from the Peanut Gallery.
Which is great, by the way, because you have all kinds of memes and just different shit. You post sometimes 3-4 times a day, which I fucking love, and it's all good content. So,
thank you. I definitely appreciate that. I try to make sure that the algorithm never starts working against me, especially when you start to get the waves and you start to see like your own trends and like if you're monitoring your insights. And I mean, as a creative who a lot of my work goes through this medium, I have to keep a pulse on what those insights are.
I don't pay any attention to any of that.
So
I probably should, but yeah.
I will say this on that side. When I started paying attention is when I started seeing results.
Okay.
Or in terms of growth, I should say. That's when I started to really kind of see the follower count start to grow. And it still isn't shit. Like I only have I don't even see what the follower count is up there. It's maybe like 5,000 somewhere in there. But yeah,
go follow. Go follow comments from the
Peanut Gallery.
Yeah.
And but like I say, in comparison to your big wigs out there, like your just like you mentioned, your Rogans, your Schaubs, your Cam Hanes of the world, those guys who are these big figures out there through a lot of the similar talking spaces. 5,000 isn't shit compared to those guys.
Those guys are in the millions or whatever.
I will tell you this: I started paying attention around September-ish, and I was still below 2K. So starting in October, that's when I broke the 2,000 barrier. And, I mean, for someone who doesn't really know all the complete advanced end of the algorithm, just by following what the insights are telling me in terms of what days I'm having the most engagements,
sure,
what times I'm having the most people have traction to the posts, monitoring and seeing what sort of content is getting the most sort of engagement to people. You got to make sure that you're commenting back and you're hitting the like button back on what they say, because that strokes the algorithm. That's what helps boost your page rank, and that's where you start getting put in front of more and more accounts, which then hopefully lead to more and more people hitting the follow button.
Okay.
Also on the same side, I embrace the trolls. A lot of people, they start to get mad or pissy or whatever. Go ahead, comment away. I'm going to blow a kiss face back at you. Hopefully it triggers you so you write 3 paragraphs back. And because one way or the other, the machine, the algorithm only interprets that you're commenting and there's something being commented back.
Sure.
And so if I can maybe poke the bear a little bit and get you to write back a few more times, and especially if, depending on what the character input of that copy text is, it's always going to work in my favor. So bring it on.
Right.
That's the way that I look at it, and that's another thing that I learned from James Krause. He's like, hey, this is the way that the platform works. Gary Vee's another great one that gives a lot of incredible insight on how to grow your social media presence. His books, Crush It and Crushing It, were 2 that I definitely think that I gained some inspiration on in terms of just attacking it with a relentless forward pursuit. But yeah, comments from the Peanut Gallery is obviously that's the bread and butter. That's also the podcast. That's the baby. That's what started everything from the very beginning. This next month, I'm not sure when this will go out to public.
It'll be out Tuesday. Okay,
yep. So at that point, you'll be able to listen to the most recent podcast episode with Coach Danny Molina of Skywalker 101 Boxing. He's also a tight relationship with Factory X. That's Anthony Smith's boxing coach. That's been one of Anthony's coaches for years and years, and just a real close, just down-to-earth guy. I love Danny. We had just a good old boys conversation for the majority of the time.
Hell yeah.
Like he's we always talk.
Those are always the fun ones.
You've ever seen the movie American Me? But
yeah.
We always talk
great movie.
I'm the JD to Santana.
Don't look at me, puppet.
Exactly. For the respect.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my dude. So shout out to Coach Danny Molina. That will be out this next week. You can look that up on pretty much every DSP out there, whether that be iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify. It's going to be up on YouTube as well. It'll be on the website on both the MMA Plug as well as DenverSportsBetting.com. That's another thing that I'm affiliated with is DenverSportsBetting.com.
That's right, man.
With just the picks, preview, and analysis stuff. Every now and then I'll weigh in with some of the other sports like team sports, but I just don't keep enough of a pulse on those anymore to really give the best in terms of
so hard,
betting
man.
analysis. Now, if we're talking a hot take on something, oh, my man, I'll shoot from the hip all day long.
Right.
But if you're really wanting that from the sports betting side, I'm not the guy to ask when it comes to football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, any of that shit anymore. Don't even bother asking me. If you ask me for a pick and I give you one, go with the opposite, because that's probably what's going to happen. That's how little I follow any of that shit anymore.
Right.
But when it comes to...
Glad I stopped betting a long time ago.
But as it comes to fighting, though, so we have the MMA plug powered by DenverSportsBetting.com. DenverSportsBetting.com is our primary sponsor, our showcase sponsor for the MMA plug on Mile High Sports Radio. So that's obviously a big venture that I have with Ron Kruk being my co-host. We've had, in these first few weeks, we had Boss Rutan on the first week, as well as Dustin Jacoby. The next week, we had Tito Ortiz and Benson Henderson. The week after that, we had Macy Barber and Alex Hernandez. This last week, we had Uriah Faber and then Anthony Smith. So we try to do our best to bring our listeners the very best in MMA.
It shows, man.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I love listening to you guys rap about it, and it's been fun, man.
Oh, yeah. I love that aspect of every single week, and just to be able to work with somebody like Ron Kruk, who is such a G in this game. Like, Ron Kruk has been around for a long time. If you go back and you look up some of those old best of, like, press conference moments and whatnot, you might not see him in some of the clips, but if you recognize his voice, you'll recognize that that's the voice that's asking a lot of those questions. Like now, where you hear John Morgan talking most of the time in those early questions, that was Ron Kruk back in the day.
Yeah.
And I'm also of that generation of when Inside MMA was on TV. I watched his show for so long of him being side by side with Boss that it's now like a holy shit, I'm sitting right here across the table with the headset on.
That's so rad, man. That's got to be surreal, right?
It is. Yeah. It is. And then once we started, he's like, well, we used to do this concept or this little segment called 3 rounds. I'm like, you want to do 3 rounds with me? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Like 3 rounds, like let's go. Like that's one of my favorite segments when we actually get to. This was the first week that we scrapped it, but it was just because we kind of had to throw the format off a little bit because Anthony called in for that last segment. But it's like, if we're going to get the live source of who we discussed on the show earlier that wants to call in and talk, well then absolutely,
no
we're
problem.
Gonna bring you on. Like I have no problem pushing.
Hold on, Anthony, we got to do 3 rounds.
Yeah, no, that shit can go by the wayside. Right. We're gonna bring you on right now. Yeah. So that's always something that I look forward to every single week. Like I say, that can be listened to live on milehighsports.com every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 Mountain Time. That will also always be available on the next day on denversportsbetting.com. The Mile High Sports Podcast Network will keep those episodes. So if you download the app or if you have an account with them and you listen to any of their other shows, there's The Final Word with Alex Ramirez and Joe Rico. That's been a long-standing show as far as sports talk in the Denver area, which is a phenomenal show, by the way. And great guys. Also love the fight game, so shout out to Joe and Alex. But you get to listen to all these shows through the Mile High Sports platform as well. So I think it's an incredible opportunity across the board. And then, like I say, Denver sports betting is
especially if you're a Broncos fan, Nuggets fan, Avalanche, any of those.
It is. Yeah. It is, definitely. And that's where I want to give a shout-out to some of my team over there with DenverSportsBetting.com in Ryan Garcia. He's the boss. He's the man who puts all the deals in place and makes the machine run on that end of things. Anil Apiro, he's one of our content strategists, and he's a producer for the MMA Plug Show. So always have to give those guys a shout and make sure that they're appreciated for all the hard work that they do put in. Because sometimes, like, I'll be honest, man, I'm a motherfucker to work with because I'm passionate. Yeah. And when stuff doesn't go like the way that I see it, or if there's something that's a hang up, or then sometimes it's like, well, why the fuck not? Like, why is this not here? Or why was this not done? Or this was a controllable. Why did we let this happen, sort of thing? But I don't know a way, like, that's my competitive nature also.
Right.
It's passion paired with being competitive. And sometimes I'm a little bit of a motherfucker to deal with like that. So I appreciate you, Anilo, and Ryan for putting up with my shit sometimes, but it's always from a good place.
You good at what you do, is that attention to detail. And
well, I appreciate that. I have to kind of tell myself that, so I don't think that I'm a complete asshole. Right. Like sometimes, like, oh man, like, yeah, I might have been a little bit hard there, but sometimes I just feel like Coach Mark calls it attention getters. Every now and then, got to have some attention getters to get some shit done.
Sure.
But like I say, they've definitely work their asses off on the back end of things, making sure that we are able to get this on the airwaves. They're the ones who helped put that deal in place with Mile High. You know, me and Ron, we were the quote-unquote, we're the talent, if you will. Like, it's weird being called that, but in terms of our business model and structure, we're the talent. And it's kind of nice for me to not have to do all of the business things, because
you can just focus on what you need to do.
Everything for the peanut gallery side, I have to do all of that on my own. So it was nice in teaming up with all of these guys in that there are people that are willing to take on the workload and to tackle the things that I just might. I mean, it's not that I don't want to do or I 100% see the value, but I feel like my time is better purposed. I feel like I'm better purposed in being prepared to deliver solid content, or better purposed in being behind the camera out there on the mats and getting somebody's training footage and figuring out a way to help them tell their story. I'm working on a motivational piece right now for Jorge Juarez. He's a young up-and-coming 2-0 pro that just moved out to Factory X. He also it's kind of also showcasing one of Coach Trevor Whitman's products. He got hooked up with some Onyx gloves, and so it's showcasing that, but on top of just a little bit of his journey, just not necessarily majorly in depth of something, but it's showing a couple of days of progression in the gym of one session that kind of started off a little bit rocky, and he was learning, to where the next day after that learning session happened and those building blocks were kind of cemented from that day of learning, he was able to come back and translate that the next day to cracking through combos. So it was just it was a real cool thing that I have a little bit of Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. I don't know if you know who E.T. is, but
I don't. Yeah.
You've heard E.T. I can guarantee you've heard him. You just might not know who his name is.
Okay.
Like if you've ever heard the speech, like you've got to want to succeed more than you want to breathe. That guy.
Okay. I think I have.
That's him. He's on a lot of like sports hype up videos and on all those sorts of things. So I can promise you've heard him.
He's got his own podcast too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then I have heard him.
Yeah, he's a guy who's a major source of inspiration, especially for a lot of these fighters. And it's because he's another guy who has that kind of raw Goggins type of energy that he's not going to pull punches. He's gonna throw you a little bit of that C.T. Fletcher type of action.
What's that other guy's name too? Nia Shubu or something?
I'm not sure.
He's kind of similar along those lines too. That might be who I was thinking of. So I don't know.
There's
so many out there.
A lot of great sources out there.
Yeah.
You know, that was another guy who was, and again, not to go too far off it, but getting to meet C.T. Fletcher and getting to shoot content in his gym and in the Valley of the Beasts out there.
Oh, that must have been awesome, huh?
And he gave me a drop at the very end, and he just, I don't give a fuck what happens. It is still your motherfucking set. And points right at the camera, just looking dead in, and he has like the angry eye going to it. The perfect drop. I just asked him at the very end of the session, like, CT, can I get that drop?
I know exactly who it is now. Yeah.
So he just looked at, and he barked it out, and like, oh my God, like, you want to talk about a bone-chilling moment.
He's your Denzel Training Day character in real life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and I mean, real life badass too. The guy he's held world records at times in terms of strength and powerlifting. So he's not just a blowhard. He's a guy who actually achieved a lot of things within his life. But like I say, that's going down a road. But that was also with doing short film footage and doing that sort of content. Like, I've been so fortunate to be able to work with some of the people that I have, to travel to some of the places that I've been able to, and just get to have an opportunity to.
And where can people check that out if they want to go watch it? That's
posted on the YouTube channel.
Oh, it is?
So
okay.
it's on my Instagram as well. But you mentioned I have a lot of posts on Instagram, so you might be scrolling a while before you find it on Instagram itself. But if you go to the comments from the Peanut Gallery YouTube channel, then you'll be able to search that video with CT and the gang. I believe Ian Heinisch also has it posted on his Instagram TV as well. I've done a lot of work with Ian. That was a show that too, before a lot of the shutdown stuff and just complications with travel, me and Ian did a weekly bit that was called Eye of the Storm. Ian's nickname is obviously Ian the Hurricane Heinisch. Well, One of the works that we do is something that's called Eye of the Storm. If you know anything about Ian's story, he's basically the UFC George Jung, UFC most wanted, whatever you want to say, has been in prison in multiple different countries, is a reformed addict, has turned his life around, and is now one of the top-ranked middleweights in the world. people submit questions to Ian that they want to hear him tell stories about from his past. So he's told stories about his prison hooch business, to what was the scariest fight that he got into.
Yeah.
Just things that
I'd listen to
really
that.
peel the layer of the onion back, that just show you a little bit more of somebody.
Man, it sounds like you need one website that's just Jordan.com, right? And it has links to everything.
Yeah, I got to get a link tree going.
Yeah,
just to
there you
boom
go.
Everything
Link
else,
tree, something like that.
Yeah. But there, you know, with some of it, that's where too, where you'll find as you continue, because you guys are. This has been a phenomenal experience, by the way.
Oh, thank you, man.
You guys are going to continue to grow. There's going to be bigger opportunities that are going to come along, and sometimes that's where it gets tough to always have everything housed under one roof, because then, like for say like the Mile High situation, or with those being through that channel, well, I by rights I can't put that on my own site or my own channel, because that's the platform that we're putting it out through, but that's also who the sponsors are paying to put us out through. That's the platform that they're providing the funding and the payment for. So that's where sometimes as you grow with the business side of things that not a lot of people always think of, that's who, you know, they're paying for you to be on this platform. Yeah, you can go and be on whatever on your own, but are you going to get that same traction? Peanut Gallery podcast, it's much more on a very down-to-earth, uncut conversation.
And that's kind of the level that we're on, and I think that I want to keep this on for what I want to do with it, you know. Eventually I want to branch out to where we have some of our own events and we step outside of the podcast a little bit, you know, but other than that, I don't think
if satellite or something like that were to ever come along, would that be an opportunity that you would entertain?
Probably not.
No.
I might do something along the lines of like what Rogan just did with a licensing deal, maybe, but I think we're far off from that. But
yeah,
if somebody wanted to approach us with it,
it's $114 million.
114. Shit, they could approach me with 10 million right now, and we would talk. But yeah, I think just so I can keep it to where I can do what I want to do, you know.
And that's why I keep the Peanut Gallery. That's my baby. In that way, you know, I mean.
And that's how I feel about this one. If somebody wanted to approach me to go do something else or a different show somewhere else, I'd be open to that.
Yeah, and I'm always open to that being picked up on a different platform. I'm never gonna close the door on something before it's ever presented. But
sure, one
thing that would be an absolute is I have to retain creative control.
Yeah.
That's something that's a non-negotiable.
We just talked about this on the last podcast with music and stuff, and my buddy Justin that's writing music, and he's had
owner material.
Yeah. They're just going to chop it up. You know what I mean? You're not going to have an 8-minute, 10, 15-minute song. It's going to be condensed down to 3 minutes now, or you only got X amount of time, you know? So.
Yep, exactly. But then that's where there's value and there's a place for my show like the MMA Plug. Because that's like I say, that's a turnkey operation at this point for anybody else out there who want. We have all of our segment breaks and everything programmed into when we do our
and it's
our
short and sweet. You're going there for something, you're getting it, and then you're done.
Exactly. You know, it's an hour runtime because we're going off of a broadcast schedule in that way. It's in a traditional broadcast studio setting.
Sure.
So that's one thing that and radio is. Really and truly, man, that's my biggest challenge because I have to censor myself. Like that is the biggest challenge for me, especially when it's to something that I'm really like fired up and passionate about. And the nature of the beast. I work out of a gym.
Have you slipped up?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's good.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood. But yeah, no, not to this point. But
you don't have to worry about that in here. So.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I love having my outlet to be able to do that. And it's a tough thing that I'm still trying to figure out on my own because my brand that has gotten me to this point has been that unadulterated sort of hot take guy.
Sure.
Or that's someone who's not afraid to shoot from the hip. And sometimes it might be a little bit controversial, sometimes not so much. But I'm going to say it unapologetically. That's the way that I've always tried to approach it. And you know what? Have I had some takes where now at this point, just like we mentioned earlier, you talk enough on a microphone, you're going to be like, man, I shouldn't have said that, or that was fucking stupid. It happens.
Right.
But I'm not afraid to make that mistake. I'm not afraid to go out there and try something, and I'm not afraid to fail at it, just like with commentary.
You have to. You got to push
There's a beautiful quote
that
I would leave out to people out there that's from Richard Branson that is, if someone offers you an incredible opportunity, even if you don't know how, say yes. Figure it out. Figure it out along the way.
Right.
And that's the way that I've tried to approach so much of this, man. Like, I didn't start off.
Or if you want to do something, figure it out along the way. That's what
Right.
I've done here. And I mean,
Exactly.
we've pretty much been able to figure it out pretty quick. So
You figured it out masterfully very quick, my friend. Way quicker than I was able to on that end. Like I say,
thank you,
I mean,
man. We've
this
had some good
setup is
mentors too.
So great.
We've had some good mentors and some good help. So shout out to all those people that have helped us out, and
Yep.
all of our guests that have come in. That's who's helped build this thing too. So
I'm grateful to be one of them, man. Like I say, thank you so much for
Appreciate it,
giving me
Jordan.
the opportunity. I mean, conversation has been great. I love
Yeah,
being
man,
able
let's
to
do it
nerd
again,
out over
man.
fights. Oh yeah,
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
with it, man. Especially getting to have that bit of that beautiful drive up here through the canyon.
Hell yeah.
coming up from the. Oh, man, this is a vibe. Like, I'm ready to roll. Let's do this.
all right, Jordan, man. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Did we drop everywhere where people can find you?
Yes.
I mean, comments from the Peanut Gallery, Mile High Sports Radio.
On Twitter, you can catch me at Peanut Podcast. I mean, Twitter basically, it feeds a lot off of the Instagram, but that's
Sure.
where a lot of times during actual fights, I'll live tweet sometimes.
Okay.
It's 2020. I watch a lot of fights from my phone, though, too. So sometimes I'm not always tweeting. Like, even sometimes MMA Twitter's like, well, what'd you think of this?
And there's like
It's
3
like, well,
fights a week now.
fuck,
you
man.
know?
I don't
It's
want to
all
like
the time,
turn
yeah.
I don't want to leave the stream of the fight to go tweet my thought on what happened right there.
Right.
So yeah, and I don't know, but that's the Twitter.
You're gonna be walking around. You're gonna be one of those guys with 2 phones now.
Oh, I've been that guy before. Yeah, I used to have to carry 2 phones
Right.
for an old job that I used to have, and so
Yeah, no.
I was that guy at times. I don't want to be the 2-phone guy again, but yeah.
Well, go check Jordan out. Go follow comments from the Peanut Gallery, and if you're an MMA fan, you got to listen to Jordan. So, Jordan, thank you so much for coming in, man. It's been a pleasure, and I feel like we could have gone for 6 hours. I think we've done a couple at least. So
Time flies. Man.
it does,
Time
man. It
absolutely
really
flies.
does.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordan. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.